Today we're going to be talking about the Object 777 version 2. Now this is exactly the same amount of tokens as the Char, the K91PT, the Kunze-Panzer and the AE Phase 1 at 12 tokens. And again, just a reminder, if you are watching this video when it comes out or before the 20th of December 2024, you still have time to pick your tokens if you still have some. But the Object 777 is probably one of the most well-armored tanks out of the entire list of the token tanks that you can pick up. And I have read all of your comments, and I agree. We should go to TanksGG for all of the stats. Apart from the crew skills. The crew skills I will go ahead and put in a comparison in-game, but for the stats and the armor model and everything else, we're going to TanksGG. So here we are in TanksGG, and if you're not familiar with this website, it basically just gives you all the stats that you can't see, and also the ones that you can see in the game, as well as the armor model layout that you can then go and have a look at. I'll be trying to make these videos a little bit more compact and faster. We're going to remove any excess fluff, and we'll just get going. First things first, we are using base values to start off with, just to show you what the gun stats are. 1,900 DPM, that is tragic on this tank. 440 alpha as well, which means that it's not got the alpha damage to then back up the low DPM negative. Where 440 alpha, don't get me wrong, it's not an awful alpha damage by any means. It's quite nice, but it's only quite nice when it has DPM to back it up. And with that alpha and DPM comes a reload time of 13.9, which is, you're really approaching some of those higher alpha damage guns for the same reload time that you have. So just watch out for that. By no means, as I said, is 440 alpha bad. It's just that in combination with that higher reload time for what you would expect for 440 alpha, it can be awkward. One thing that's definitely not awkward and is actually one of the best features about this tank is that you can actually utilize both shells in this tank. The first shell being AP and 258mm of standard pen, and then the heat round having 340mm of pen. But the best thing about this is that they both go at the same speed. So, I mean, well, 20 meters a second difference. The heat round will go 920 meters a second, and the AP round will go 940 meters a second. And also the HE is quite nice at 68 pen with 530 alpha, although it does only have 90 more damage, which is something that you would expect a little bit more of if it's going to be a HE round, usually at least 100 in my opinion anyway, but it's there if you need it. The aim time is 2.9 seconds, and I won't lie to you, it's not really that bad. There's some aim times where you really feel it, but in this tank you don't really feel it that much. If you have a stab, which we're going to talk about in a second, which you definitely should do, you don't really feel that near 3-second aim time. And obviously, with crew skills and everything else, that can come rapidly down. The only real other bad thing about this vehicle is the gun dispersion at 0.42. It's just... This gun will go wherever it wants to go. There's hardly any point in fully aiming the gun half the time, because chances are it's just going to have a mind of its own. So just be aware of it. The gun is very derpy. It will go anywhere but where you aim sometimes. And then moving on to why we need a stab, and that is the dispersion factors. You have 0.2 on the moving and tank traverse, so this is when you're actually going forwards and backwards with the vehicle. The tank traverse is when you're going left, right, and then the turret traverse is when you're moving the turret. The turret traverse is actually not that bad at 0.12, that's more than manageable, but the other two, you definitely want stab to bring that down, and then obviously stab is going to help that out as well. The top speed of this vehicle is 40 kilometers an hour, and the power to weight is 15, which makes it more than good enough to just get around the map and do what you need to do. Obviously, you're not going to be going anywhere super fast, but if you want to get into position in a heavy tank, you're going 40. This is really quite good for this vehicle, and the size of it and weight of it as well. Not to mention, adding on top of all of this, the effective top speed, so the terrain resistances, allow you to maintain 40 across hard and medium terrain. Which means that, yes, if you've watched me before, that means we can use the right-hand field mod for the first one. The gun elevation is 18, which is actually very high that you can point this gun up to, but the gun depression is only 6, which can be a very big issue. I'm not saying that this is unplayable, but on certain maps, it is. 6 degrees of gun depression can be incredibly awkward because you almost need the enemy to make a mistake for you to then have shots at them. Because in most maps nowadays, you're going to need 7, 7.5, 8 degrees of gun depression to feel somewhat comfortable on them. And when you don't have that, you truly feel it sometimes. Armor we're going to move on to in a second, but the health is 1,850, which is actually only 100 more than what the Char Future 4 gets, interestingly enough. However, that does mean that once you put hardening on this tank, and even if it's just the standard hardening in the slot, over 2,000 health, very nice indeed. 380 meters view range means that you're never going to reach the 445 meters view range, especially for a tank like this where you want to have other equipment choices than optics or even vents for that matter. But at the same time, I kind of agree with this because heavy tanks shouldn't have view range. They should be a brawling tank that is there to brawl and fight on the front line, and then the other tank should be the one that's spotting and stuff like that. So it having limited view range, although this is by no means bad view range, like 380 is more than good enough. If it does want to spot, it could. But I feel like this is not a drawback to the tank. Moving on to the armor layout, and this is where it gets interesting, because as I said at the start, this is some of the best armor of any of the token tanks. And you can see why. This thing is a side-scraping god, because as you side-scrape, it just becomes so good. Point your gun over the first track wheel, right there. That is not getting penned, and you're not even getting overmatched because it's 115 millimeters thick. The only way that they can actually pen you is when they go up above, right where, as you can see here, it kind of sticks out a little bit. The turret meets the hull, and you've got that little ring around it, so the turret ring. This is not exactly easy to hit. People will hit you here now and again, but if they don't know where they're aiming for, they're not hitting it. And not to mention RNG and everything else regarding aiming. But you need to be careful that you don't over-angle, because if we're over-angled like this, it then becomes a lot easier to go through like this. So just keep that in mind. You want to be angled roughly about here, where it's just over the first track wheel, and then you should be absolutely fine. So this sort of angle, and you should be good. Now, this does have an overmatch on the roof. However, that is only for greater than 150 caliber guns. So if you do meet a 152 millimeter caliber gun, you need to watch out for this, because they will be able to go with AP straight through your roof right here. For example, if you did meet at 60 TP, it could load AP and just go straight through your roof. Cupolars are very small and not really going to be getting hit by anybody unless they are very lucky or very well aimed. But there is obviously the big drawback of that lower plate, and the lower plate is your real weakness on this vehicle, because that is very easy to pen. No matter what you try and do, it's very easy to pen. Anything that is your tier or even one tier below will be able to go straight through this. It's 230 at this angle, so maybe not at this angle. Tier 8s will, struggle quite a lot, but head on, that's getting penned by pretty much everyone. So if you can get hold down and you use all of your gun depression, all almighty 6 degrees of it, and use something like this, you're very hard to kill. Or side scraping. Side scraping is where this thing really shines though. Okay, so turning all of these onto the effective values, and we go ahead and add all the crew skills that we might want. I'm going to go through the actual crew skills in a second, but just to show you, we'll remove camo because we're not going to be using that. But this is what it looks like when all the crew skills are added, and as you can see, dispersion has gone down, the aim time has gone all the way down to 2.7 now, and the DPM's gone up to 2000. If we then go ahead and add in what I would like on this tank, that is going to be hardening, rammer, and then V-stab, obviously, it's then looking a lot nicer. You have 2300 DPM. Again, this is pretty tragic DPM, but it's not completely awful. It's it's getting there. But an 11.5 second reload for 440 alpha is definitely not great. As you can see, the dispersion factors have gone all the way down to something a lot more manageable now and a lot nicer to play with. And then obviously we have the track health going up to 408 and then hit points 2060. If we then go ahead and add in food, and then we use the field mods, which is going to be the right hand side for the first one, then the left, then the right, and then the left again, you will see that we now have a tank that is, I would say, pretty competitive. Apart from maybe the DPM. Now our dispersion is down to 0.37. We have the DPM up, obviously because we were using food. The aim time has actually gone up, and that is because of the last field mod, picking on the left-hand side to get the plus 4 km/h top forward speed. But the aim time doesn't matter because the dispersion factors are very nice. Even though that these are not god tier, it's still very nice to play with. And as we said, our top forward speed has gone up 4 km/h, which means that we are now 44 across hard and medium, while still having the track health at 448. This track health is actually quite important because that means that 400 alpha damage guns are going to struggle to track you in one shot unless they high roll, and high roll quite a bit as well. So that just means that we've got much more peace of mind for not getting our tracks blown off in one shot. Which is honestly one of the most important things if you are in a brawling style tank, especially a side scraping tank like this. Combined with that, we have now 2,120 hit points. Obviously, as we go up through the field mods, our HP increases as well. And this is where I said about the view range. It's not great. It's not terrible. 440, way more than enough for a heavy tank. But obviously, that is not the full story because it doesn't actually show you the benefits of the other perks in Tanks GG because they've not updated it yet. And I would use Tomato GGs, but I really don't like the UI layout on that. So for the crew skills, Brothers in Arms, repairs, we do not need concealment. We are then going to be picking recon, we're going to be picking emergency, mentor, and coordination for the commander. This is, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't pick anything else. Mentor, not only does it give you more XP so that you can then earn the crew books faster, and yes, this does work. If everybody is fully trained, you will still earn XP towards the crew books faster using Mentor. But it also then replaces the knocked out crew member if you do have one. So I quite like to use Mentor. I think that it's a very nice perk to have. Add in coordination, and then you have your aim time coming all the way down as well. And then for the gunner, we have Snapshot, Deadeye, Armorer, and quick aiming. I don't think this needs designated target, and it definitely doesn't need concentration because you're never going to be sitting still for 3 seconds in this thing. And even if you did, I've already spoken about how I don't think this is useful at all. But now just from using those, we've got our aim time all the way down to 2.2 seconds. Bearing in mind, we haven't used the field mods yet, and so all of this will then be added on top in a second. The driver, smooth ride, off-road driving, even though that we have impeccable terrain resistances, it still is nice to have these buffed up so that you are still having the traverse speed going faster as well, if that makes sense. Because even though that you could have the maxed out top speed, the off-road driving is still going to help out when you are turning on different terrain types. I'd then probably pick clutch braking and then also controlled impact. Controlled impact just because it's a heavy tank. You're gonna want to have it just in case someone rams you. It's always better to have this than not. And then clutch braking just to increase that traverse speed again. For the loader, safe stowage, intuition, perfect charge, and ammo tuning. I like these a lot. Perfect charge, especially on this tank, just to boost up that shell speed for both the standard round and the premium round. They then go over, I believe, 1,000 meters a second, which is quite nice. So you overall have a much better experience. And then obviously ammo tuning to cut off the minimum potential damage and minimum penetration that you can do. Combined with Armorer means that you are getting a much more consistent experience, shall we say, regarding damage rolls and pen rolls. They're not going to still be perfect, but a much more consistent one nevertheless. For the bonus perks, situational awareness, firefighting, and then side-by-side, I think, because if you're going to be brawling with other heavy tanks, you're probably going to be next to a heavy tank. If this was a tank that could go off on its own and be a more faster hold-down heavy, then I'd probably want to pick signal interception. But for this style of tank, where it's going to be surrounded by other heavies usually, this will be a better option. And then obviously load up with food and the equipment. You'll see that the aim time is now down to 2.77 seconds. We have 2,400 hit points. And if we go into here, you'll see that the aim time is actually all the way down to 2.3 seconds. Now, if we remove emergency from this, this is what you would have. You'd have 2.35 seconds aim time when you spot someone, which is actually very, very valuable. And you will spot people more times than you realize. So that is really, really nice to have on this tank. This also means that your average penetration has actually gone up to 262 for the standard rounds, and then for the heat rounds is 345, and your average damage is 446. So overall, with all of these stuff added, the tank is very, very nice. Although lacking in DPM, for definite. Okay, so here we are on Westfield, which is a lovely map for the 6 degrees of gun depression that I have on this tank. Obviously, we are not going to be going to the left-hand side on the hill over here, because no gun depression. But over here, we should be able to deal with anybody that is crossing over. And if you do have a tank that doesn't have gun depression, this is definitely one of the best places to go. If this is clear on the left-hand side, you can usually get up to this mound, and then you can start fighting people here. And as long as you have people behind you, which we do, we have the T103, we have the T10 and the M6Y, we can then start farming here. The 752 doesn't know what's hit him. He can't really push forwards because of the people behind us. We have our T10 next to us as well. And we can now just start pushing forwards and start being annoying. Now, the one thing that we need to be careful of is any tank destroyers at the back, which we are aware of now. We are using heat against the 752 because that thing is absolutely abysmal to try and pen if you're using anything under 300 heat, I would say. 300 pen, and yeah, because if you use the standard rounds on the lower plate, if it goes high, if it goes low, if it goes left, it goes right, you'll just randomly get shot. What is this guy doing? I mean, the Type 6... Is that the Type 63 that's gone in? Yes, the Type 63 has indeed gone in as well. Excellent. We love the people that play on the enemy team. Now, the Skoda 250 is there. I wait for him to either back off or fire his clip. We then go around. We're going to start to help out these guys. I have no idea what is going on in this game. We're going to aim for the fuel tanks to try and set them on fire. No fire yet, but we did hit something. He then gets taken out by artillery, which is lovely, fair and balanced. And then here comes the others. I would love to tell you that I know what their plan was, but I have no idea. Because they're down on health, they're down... Well, I mean, we're even on tanks, but they have worse positions entirely. One into the back of him, we set him on fire. Always aim for fuel tanks, engines, stuff like that if you have Deadeye. This is why I love Deadeye. It's so nice, especially on the higher caliber guns. If you can aim at someone's fuel tanks and stuff like that, it's super, super nice to have. And super rewarding as well. Because, you know, if you've learnt where different things are on the tank, and let's be honest, it's not hard. If you aim for the engine, you're probably going to end up hitting the fuel tanks because they're usually nearby. But it's super nice just to fire at something and then see that it gets set on fire. So we're not going to push forwards anymore, though. The reason being is that there are plenty of tanks over here. As you see, the WZ. There's also the Scorpion. But there's also still the 752 and the E75 behind that. So we're going to try and go up around here. We don't have gun depression. However, we know that there shouldn't be too many people at the very back of the map. I want to find out where the Skoda's gone. We find out where the Skoda has gone. He is, I don't know, looking at buying a house in this region. I have no idea. Genuinely, I don't know what he was doing because he was looking the other way and yet everybody was still over this side. So, I don't know. Anyway, peeking up here, the only reason I'm peeking up this is to see if I can spot the WZ or the Scorpion or just make them shoot at me. Because if I can make them shoot at me, I can then try and blind fire them back. Obviously... Oh, he is actually there. So, we then put one into him. Lovely. Take him out of the game. Now we're just doing the same thing. We don't want to over-peak this because the lower plate is very, very weak. But from this angle, all they can see is my upper hull and my turret. And he can't overmatch my roof. He doesn't have the caliber. But we can also then shoot the E75 as well. And as we're over-peaking a little bit too much here. But to get damage in at the same time is worth it. You know, the trade-off from taking the damage from the Scorpion to try and get one into the E75 is quite nice. And we're still not... It's not like we're super exposed to the Scorpion by any means. So we'll just keep putting some into the E75. Keep trying to kill him there. As you can see, we've been using a mix of our ammo loadout. It's, you know, we're using 50-50. We had 20, 18, 2 loadout at the start, and we're now down to 12, 15. So these side shots into the E75, obviously we don't need heat for. But for stuff like the 752 and other tanks that can be quite annoying, the heat rounds are super nice. We get spotted. I fired a little bit early, unfortunately, because the Scorpion is around about there. It's actually just to the left of that. But the E75 can't move, the 752 died, and now it's just the Scorpion and the E75 remaining. There is still the Skoda, which we need to be aware of, and this is why the T10 doing this is a little bit dodgy, because one, the Scorpion could just overpeak and shoot him, and then he's dead. But two, we don't know where the Skoda is, and this T10 is just pushing for no reason. Like, he's very lucky to still be alive at this point, but if the Skoda was just here, he could have died instantly. And now he's getting shot by the Skoda right now. I think he dies here. So, yeah, he dies there to the Skoda. But he even said in chat, like, rigged game or something like this. Man, do you not see that there's still a Skoda around and a Scorpion there? Like, use your brain. Like, you can't just go forwards here and then expect not to get shot by the Skoda. Because he even went around this way. If he went wide, it would have been a bit different maybe, but yeah. It's one of those things where that's not really anyone's fault other than yourself in that scenario. But we don't really want to push forwards down that way because that way is death. However, I am thinking about ways that I can get back into this game because at the moment it's a little bit of a stalemate. The reason why, if we just pause it for a second, if we go down this way, the same thing that happens to us goes, the same thing happens to the T10 happens to us. We can't push down this way. We just die to the Scorpion or the Skoda or whatever. So in the second, hopefully, when my brain engages, I was still trying to look for the Scorpion because I wanted to try and at least put one into him, blind or something like that. But I think in a second, hopefully, I decide to go left. Please, just speed it up. Come on, Max, brain, yes, the cogs are turning. This is good. Anyway, we go back down into this. We get spotted as we go down, which either is from the Skoda or from the Scorpion. Obviously, we don't know where the Skoda actually is, but we know that he had shots on the T10. He is in there. We take one from the Scorpion, unfortunately, and he rolls a 584. He has a 390 alpha damage gun. Oh, sorry, 490 alpha damage gun, but, you know, it's that's fine. And now we just wait. Unfortunately, we don't have any blind into the Scorpion. We can put one in a run there into it right now. We're now up to 5,444 damage. Hopefully, no damage on him. And now we can just push forwards. The game is over. It's just a job of clearing up the enemy tanks. So, really, honestly, this tank is just solid. It really is. It's got the armor to deal with tanks that you meet, even if they're, you know, a tier higher. If you meet tier 10s, as long as they don't have the overmatch capability of 152, you're absolutely fine to peek them. You know, hold down, should be absolutely fine. Against, say, you know, 340 heat and stuff like that, then yes, you need to be a little bit careful, but even then, if you're sidescraping, you're in a pretty good position. And then the Lancer C, he was just going off on a mission. So here I was actually seeing how high you can actually aim up, and look at it. It's honestly like an AA gun. Not as much as the Lerva, but look at that. But anyway, 5,894 damage. We get Ace Tanker. We get all the medals imaginable, and then even 700 assistance. So very, very nice game there. We shot 19. We penned 12. We hit 12 and penned 12. So really quite a good result for this tank. Either way, the Object 777 version 2. For 12 tokens, you can decide whether or not you would like this tank. I think that it's a very solid vehicle. I think that it has a lot of potential in this tank, and it's very, very good at side scraping. One of the best tanks at side scraping. Even, do you know what? If you actually want to learn side scraping, it's probably one of the better tanks to learn in, because it is quite forgiving in that nature. So, yeah, let me know your thoughts down below. I'll see you all in the next one.